Previous video, we went through the basics. We learned about what DOM is. And now we are going to go on and continue with the next section, DOM events with JavaScript. Okay, so firing events. What is firing events? Event is a trigger, event detected, event handled. After a specific event fires on a specific element in the document object model or DOM, an event handler function can be created to run as a response. In this lesson, we will learn about event handler functions that modify and update DOM elements after an event fires. Let's compare the firing of events to something more familiar, a dog trained to eat when they hear the sound of a bell. This is known as the Pavlovian conditioning. I know they spoke about this in The Office, where one of the guys was trying to get his coworker to be accustomed to a behavior by offering an Altoid every time he rang the bell. And at one time he rang the bell, his coworker was expecting an Altoid, and without even being conscious of it. And then he was like, why is your hand sticking out? And then that was when he was like, oh, I was expecting an Altoid. Unawarely. Anyways, back to this. Let's compare the firing of events to something more familiar. A dog trained to eat when they hear the sound of a bell. This is known as a Pavlovian conditioning. It is a behavioral procedure in which biologically potent stimulus is paired with previously neutral stimulus. So, as you can see in the diagram, the ringing of the bell is analogous to JavaScript event firing. The dog is trained to anticipate the ringing of the bell, and this action is analogous to creating an event listener. After the dog hears the bell, it will come over and eat its food. This response is like an event handler that executes code which in a website could change an element's color, text, and much more. More events in the browser take place without being noticed. The events are undetected because there is no event handler associated with the event to execute an action. Event handlers are crucial for creating interactive websites with JavaScript. Event handlers are crucial for creating interactive websites with JavaScript. Check out the diagram to see the event firing process of a dog trained to eat when they hear the sound of a bell. What's this cheat sheet about? Add event listener, remove event listener, event handler. Okay, keyboard events, JavaScript events, JS event handlers, and then there are mouse events. Okay. Event handler registration. You're doing great. Now it's time to dive into using event handler functions to create interactivity. Using the add event listener method, we can have a DOM element listen for a specific event and execute a block of code when the event is detected. The DOM element that listens for an event is called the event target, and the block of code that runs when the event happens is called the event handler. Let's take a look at the code below. So they captured an event target, and then they added an event listener, and the type of event listener they're adding to it is to listen to some click. So this block of code will run when the click event happens on event target element. Let's break this down. We selected our event target from the DOM using document.getElement by ID. We use the add event listener method on the event target DOM element. This is a DOM element, this is a method. Then this method takes two arguments, an event name in string format and an event handler function. So a string and a function are the two arguments. We will learn about different values we can use as event names in a later lesson. In this example, we use the click event, which fires when the user clicks on event target. The code block in this event handler function will execute when the click event is detected. Instead of using an anonymous function as the event handler, it's best practice to create a named event handler function. Your code will remain organized and reusable this way, even if your code gets complex. Check out the syntax. Your code will remain organized and reusable this way, even if your code gets complex. Check out the syntax. The named function event handler function is passed as a second argument of the add event listener method instead of defining an anonymous function within the method. Okay, so this is a named function. Look at the browser and notice that there are two elements. One containing informational text about JavaScript and a button. When the button is clicked, there should be more text. When the button is clicked, there should be more text that appears. Currently, clicking the button doesn't seem to do anything. You are going to create an event handler to fix this. Create a function called showInfo. Which we will use as an event handler. Function. It will be used as an event handler function to make the hidden element containing the additional information text more info appear when a click event fires. Inside the function, create a statement that changes the dot display style property of the more info into block. Style property of more info element to block. Change the CSS property of the more info element from a display of none to block. To change a CSS property in JavaScript, you must use the following syntax. Remember, the property must be in quotation. So what are we trying to do here? Inside the function, create a statement that changes the dot display style. The dot display style. The dot display style. the dot display. Where's the dot display? There's no dot display style. The dot display style property. Oh, instead of style, instead of property, should this one be display? There's nothing in here that shows that display is a class, so it must be a property, like they said, of more info. More info to block. Okay, so I'm guessing right now it's maybe set to hidden, because display is also a style property. Yes, it's a type of style property. And so to call it on the more info, I guess I'll just use that variable. And then what was it? Dot style, because we want to change the style. And then the display style property, and set that equals to block. Let's see if I understood the assignment. More info is not defined. More info is not defined. How is it not defined? It's right here. Let's see, yep. It's calling this element. Let me read through this instruction again. And the hint, the CSS property of the more info element from display of none to block. To change a CSS property, wait a minute. You must use the following syntax. Wait a minute, what is wrong with this? It says more info is not defined. Did I spell it wrong? It's right. Do I have to view the solution? Let's see. Oh. The keyword is wrong. The syntax is wrong. Okay, so if I just change this const to a function, will this be right? Will this work? Yes, it works. So I just had a syntax error. Okay. If I were to use const, then I probably would have to turn this into an arrow function. Okay, so the next step, now create an event handler for a click event using add event listener. Use read more as the event target and show info as the event handler target. Run your code and fire your event once you're done. So I want to call this event listener to the read more listener. And this takes in 2 arguments. The first one is a name. No, the first one shows the type. What do they call it? So they call it some type of event, an event target, and it's going to be a click of the button. So the name of the event type would be no, not event type, click. It will be click, and the function that we want to call when we click it is the function that we just made called show info. Alright, let's see. And did it work? It accepted it. Now let's see it change. There it is. There it is. And that is how we add an event listener to a button. Can also handle requests and responses on a website. It's a great language to master for front-end and back-end web development. Alright. They gave us a test file right here. Wow. This is a test file. What language is this? It's JS. The test is also in JS. Okay. There's also a main. That's what we wrote. Our code, and this is the styling. Okay. So next section, adding event handlers. We looked at registering event handlers using add event listener method, but there is also another way. Event handlers can also be registered by setting an .onEvent property on a DOM element. Event target. The pattern for registering a specific event is to append an element with .on followed by the lowercase event type name. For instance, if we want to register a click event with this pattern, we would write on click equals event handler function. So it can be registered by setting an onEvent property on a DOM element. Here we give the DOM element event target, the onClick property, and set its value as the event handler function. It's important to know that this .onEvent property and .addEventListener will both register event listeners. With .onEvent, it allows for one event handler function to be attached to the event target. However, with the .addEventListener method, we can add multiple event handler functions. So .onEvent allows for one event handler function to be attached to the event target. However, with addEventListener method, we can add multiple event handler functions. Okay. In the later exercises, we'll be using the .addEventListener syntax. But we wanted to also introduce the onEvent syntax because both are widely used. Play around with the view and close elements to meet the code. To meet the code category mascot. So this is a mascot, some kind of ninja. Semicircle. Cody is super happy you made it this far and they need your help. A ninja. Now you see the ninja, now you don't. That's what the view button does. You see the ninja, to close, you can't see. Right now, the open function makes the Cody and close elements visible by changing their .display properties. Changing their .display properties to block. The hide function hides the same elements by assigning a none value to the .display properties. What are they talking about? The hide function. Where's the hide function? Okay, so this is the hide function that hides the same elements by assigning a none value to the display properties. Oh, so when we're opening this, we want to show these two elements, so they're setting them as block, and then when we close it, we want to hide these two elements, so we set them as none using the display property. Cody wants you to create a function named textChange that changes the text in the view element to hello world. To change the content of an element in JavaScript, use the inner HTML property. Okay, so to create that function, we can use the old-fashioned way. Oh yes, and we need to name this function textChange, and then we want to change the words inside the view element. Where is the view element? Okay, so they helped us capture the view button by its ID, so we can just use view and change the inner HTML by setting it equals to hello world. Alright, and that worked. So when we open this, let's check. Wait a minute, what? Oh, it's not changing because we didn't call the function yet. Okay, so now you must create a function named textReturn that changes the text of the view element variable back to view. Okay, so this function is going to be called textReturn, and we'll change it back to view. Watch out, world. So let's see if it changes now. It doesn't change. Oh yeah, because we didn't call it. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so now we want to assign the textChange as an event handler function to event fire on the view variable and run your code. You can use either the .addEventListener method or the .onEvent property to assign your event handler function for the view element. Okay, so we want to assign the one of the function we make so that it changes to hello world to the click event on the view variable. Okay, so we want the view variable, and then this is going to be the first event listener, so we can just use the onEvent property and then add it so that it listens to when the button is clicked, when the element itself, the view element itself is clicked, and then assign it a function so that it can change the inner HTML, and we wrote that function to be called textChange. So let's see if now it can work. It's wrong. Are you using either addEventListener or onEvent? I'm using the onEvent. Why is it wrong? Okay. I'm calling it view. I'm using the onEvent property, I'm passing it to listen to click. I'm passing it a function. Why isn't it working? Let's view the solution. So they used the add event listener function. They're using the add event listener function. But I wanted to use the onEvent property to assign your event handler function for the view element. So why doesn't the onEvent work? Oh, I think it's because we have to use this syntax. So it's either add event listener. The syntax for add event listener would look like this, but let's see how the on click works. I think you do it by setting the function equals to that, what you call this, event handler property. This is a event listener. This is a event handler. Okay, so let's set that equals to text change and see if that works. Oh, it worked. Wait a minute, there's an error. Okay, there's no error. Let's see. And it worked! Yay! So that's what it was. So that was a mistake. The syntax wrong. It was either this. When you use the add event listener, you pass in the type and the function as arguments. And when you use the onClick property, you set it equals to the function. So now that that worked, we can now assign text return as an event handler function to a click event fired on a close variable. Then run your code and fire the events. So we want to close it when we click the close button, and that's called close. And it will be the same thing, except we would want to set it to be the text return function. Alright, so when we open it, we can make the ninja appear, and then when we click close, it can go back into hiding. Alright, we did it. Wait, let me go through this code. What else? What other folder was here? I just want to go look through this folder. Look at the test. Okay, this was the syntax in creating a function using const keyword. They're using the assert on click. So we are allowed to use this type of event method. On event callback. Alright. Removing event handlers. The .remove event handler method is used to reverse the add event listener method. This method stops the event target from listening for an event to fire when it no longer needs to. The remove event listener also takes two arguments: the event type as a string, the event handler function. Check out the syntax of a .remove event listener method with a click event. Because there can be multiple event handler functions associated with a particular event, .remove event handler needs both the exact event type name and the name of the event handler you want to remove. If add event listener was provided an anonymous function, then that event listener cannot be removed. Oh, it cannot be removed. And check out this website that shows your daily fortune, but the website is broken. You should only be able to see your daily fortune once, but you will see that you can keep pressing the button to get a new fortune. You need to use the remove event listener method after a fortune is displayed. But let me see. A fresh start will put you on your way. Come back tomorrow. A beautiful, smart, and loving person will be coming into your life. A fresh start will put you on your way. A smile is your personal mat. Is your personal welcome mat. A golden egg of opportunity falls into your lap this month. I wonder if they have a list of all the different possible. Oh yeah, they do. It's right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 4 possible fortunes. Okay. Anyways, so we want to remove the event listener inside the show fortune function. Show fortune function. Where's the show fortune function? Right here. Well, that's a fortune selector. Show fortune is right here. We added an inner HTML to be one of the quotes here. We set the button to say come back tomorrow, and the cursor is default. And then what we want to do is make sure the event handler function in the remove event listener method is the same function of the corresponding add event listener method. What does that mean? Okay. Show fortune. So we want a button to show fortune once, and then we want to remove that functionality. And how do we get the button? Looks like they help us capture the fortune button and saved it into the button variable. So I'm going to use the button call the remove event listener, listen for a click, and tell them to remove the show fortune function. Alright, so this should work. Yeah, and we can see as long as we click this button, it will stay the same. Alright. Wait, how did they also... let me check to see the test because I want to know how... It's good to know how they use to write these tests. They use a describe. There's one structure, two structure, three structures. Alright, the next page. Event object properties. JavaScript stores events as event objects with the related data and functionalities as properties and methods. When an event is triggered, the event object can be passed as an argument to the event handler function. The event object can be passed as an argument to the event handler function. Function event handler functions. In the example above, when the click event is triggered on the event target, the event handler function receives event. The event object, which has information related to the click event, the event. Let me start this all over again. JavaScript stores events as event objects with their related data and functionalities as properties, methods. Okay, let me see what an event object is. The event interface represents an event which takes place in the DOM, an event triggered by the user action, like e.g. clicking the mouse button or tapping keyboard, or generated by APIs to represent the progress of an asynchronous task. Or generated by APIs to represent the progress of an asynchronous task. Okay, so they're storing events as event objects. So it's a type of object with their related data and functionalities as properties and methods. Okay, so this event object has properties and methods. When an event is triggered, the event object can be passed as an argument to the event handler function. It can be passed as an argument to the event handler function. Okay, so there's an event handler, and it takes in an event object, and then it does something to it. In the example above, when the click event is triggered on the event target, when the click event is happening on the event target, the event handler function, which is defined here, will receive event, which is this event. The event object, which has information related to the click event. Then we log the time it takes, the time it took for the event to be triggered, since the document was loaded by accessing the timestamp property of the event object. There are predetermined properties associated with event objects. You can tell these properties to see information about the event. For example, the .target property to reference the element that the event is registered to. The .target property to reference the element that the event is registered to. The .type property to access the name of the event. The timestamp property to access the number of milliseconds that passed since the document loaded and the event was triggered. dot target to reference the element that the event is registered to access the name of the event, and then this is to get time passed from loading and triggering. Okay. Everyone loves a good puppy picture. So cute. Use what you've learned about event object properties to share this puppy photo with your friends. That's a nice share button. First, add a statement inside the share photo function that will change the .display property of the event .target to none. We want to share it to none. Remember, the .event target is a DOM element, and you can access the .display property by referencing the .style property first. You'll need to use the .target property on an event object to access the event target, like event.target. To change a CSS property in JavaScript, you must use the following syntax. Everyone loves a good puppy picture. First, add a statement inside the share photo. We want to add a statement inside the share photo function that will change the .display property of the event.target to none. Okay, so we want on the event .target. Okay, so when this function is called, it will take an event object to which we want to get what the target is, so it can reference the element that the event is registered to. Let's look at what this thing does. Event.target is a read-only target property of the event interface as a reference to the object onto which the event was dispatched. It is different from event current target when the event handler is called during the bubbling or capturing phase of the event. Okay, so to get a reference to the event itself, we use .target, like they said to, and change that in display property to none. Oh, and before I used the style property, I need to first specify that it is a style that we want to modify. Yay, we did it. Remember, the event.target is a DOM element, and you can access the .display property by referencing the style property first. Next, add a statement to the share photo function. A statement that will modify the text element to state the number of milliseconds from the DOM loading to the event firing. So I'm guessing we will want to change the inner HTML to state the number of milliseconds from the DOM loading to the event firing. So we can use event.timestamp. Did you access the dot inner HTML, the text element. Let me see what this index looks like of the share. So I think when they said text element, they're talking about this element with an ID text. Right. So let's see. Dot text. Oh wow, that's correct. Now to create functionality for the event object, assign the share photo function to a click event on the share element. So they captured the share button as a share variable, and we want to set onClick to be equals to the function that we just created. And that worked. We used an onEvent property, which is on onClick. And whoa, it changed. Whoa, wow. That's so cool. What did they use? They just used some stuff like this. They called it a Twitter social button. Did they add the image in as in the CSS? No, but they didn't add it in there, so I don't know how they did that. But the tests are pretty much the same. There's a literal type. Okay, so it could be either event or onClick. Alright, next. Event types. Beyond the click event, there are all types of DOM elements that can fire in a browser. It's important to know most events in the DOM takes place without being noticed because there are no event handlers connected to them. It's also important to know some registered events don't depend on user interaction to fire. For instance, the load event fires after website files completely load in the browser. Browsers can fire many other events without a user. You can check out a list of events on the MDN events page. Many events need user interaction with the DOM to fire. One user interaction event you've become familiar with is a click event. A click event fires when the user presses and releases a mouse button on an element in the DOM. In the rest of this lesson, you'll explore more user interaction event types like mouse and keyboard events. To explore more event types, check out the MDN event reference. We made a really cool color generator to help people find different colors. Try it out. Uh-oh, it seems to be broken. Pick a color. We need you to use your new knowledge to fix the website. Complete the color change function, which will be used as an event handler function to randomly change the colors of the button when specific elements are fired when specific events are fired on them. First, add the following variable to the event handler function. They want us, is this the first step? Yep, this is the first step. They want us to add the following variable to the event handler function, and this is our event handler function. The random color variable should be the first statement inside your function. Okay, we did that. Add a statement that changes the background color of the event target and set it equals to random color. So the background color. And they said that we can use a hyphenated style properties. Okay. So the hyphenated style property of JavaScript for the background color. On the event. So we can grab it by the event target and then .style if we want to change the style, and then the background color. Instead of background dash color, it will be camel case, and we can set that to a random color. But this is a function. Oh, the random color will return a color. So there are two elements that should change color on the web page. First, create an event handler property on the button element that fires when it's clicked. Use color change as the event handler function. Then run your code and fire the click. So it's on the button, and I wonder if .on event can work. Or on event to add an event handler. I am using an on event on the button element. Well, let's see, maybe we have to specify the event type. Yeah, I guess we do have to specify an event type. And there we go. It changes color. Now we have to create an event handler property on the mystery button element. This property needs an event that fires when you rotate the mouse wheel or slide down the mouse pad. Use the MDN event reference page to find the correct event type. Assign the name color change event handler to the event handler property. Then run your code and fire the event. They're telling us we want to use an on wheel event handler because this will fire when you rotate the mouse wheel or slide down the mouse pad. Oh, they're talking about the thing that you roll on your mouse or moving your mouse down on the mouse pad. I see. Where's the wheel? Are derived from mouse events while they are fired when using the mouse wheel. I didn't know this thing was called a mouse wheel. I usually refer to this as a scrolling thing. Okay, now, so if they say on wheel, then This time, instead of using an onEvent property, let's do it the other way. Oh, and it's not going to be called on this button. We want to call it on the mystery button. So mystery button that add event listener is going to be a wheel and what was it? The color change. Assign it the same event handler function. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Let me see if this works now. Alright, it worked. So we just have to take out the on to specify the event type. Like how if we use add event listener on this one, we would specify the event type by click. And so I'm going to click on this button to pick a color, and then when I scroll down, whoa, it's changing. I'm going up, going down, going up, and it changes. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, next. Wait, just let me go through this because I want to see how this page is written out. Chai. Dairy Queen chai. Also, you can use the dot on event. No, wait. Yeah, they're checking for wheel as an event value. On event callbacks. Oh, is that called a callback? Alright, next. Mouse events. So when you use a mouse device on a website, mouse events fire. You've seen the click and wheel events, but there are even more mouse events to explore. The mouse down event is fired when the user presses a mouse button down. This is different from a click event because mouse down doesn't need the mouse button to be released to fire. The mouse event is fired. The mouse up event is fired when the user releases the mouse button. This is because from the click and mouse down events, because mouse up doesn't depend on the mouse button being pressed down to fire. The mouse over event is fired when the mouse enters the content of an element. The mouse event is fired when the mouse leaves an element. So nothing works here. In this exercise, you'll modify the list elements using mouse events. You can use the reset element that is already programmed to set the other list element back to their default styles. First, create a function called increaseWidth that changes the width of an item 1 to any size greater than 400 pixels. You can set the dot width of a DOM element by referencing the style property first. Okay. So let's create a function called increase width. And it changes the width of item 1. Where is item 1? They gave us item 1 right there. They gave us all of the items. So item 1, we want to change the style, this width style, to be any size greater than 400 pixels. So let's just make it 500 pixels. Now create an event handler for item 1 that will trigger the increase width function when the mouse hovers over it. So let me just make a guess of what it would be. Perhaps it would be item 1 on hover is equals to the function that we just created, increase width, and that did not work. Oh, it's called mouse over. Not hover, but mouse over is the name of the event. Mouse over, on mouse over. Alright, so when we mouse over, it grows bigger. The width grows bigger. Oh, and it just stays there. If we're gonna shrink it back, we will have to change what happens to it when we leave. Okay. Next, create a function called change background. So it says specifically item 2. Style dot background color. And we can change it to any color. Let's say white. No, let's say black. And that works. So now we just have to call it so that it can be triggered when the mouse is released over the element. When the mouse is released over the element. Okay, so item 2 dot. What would the name of this event be? Mouse up. Dot on mouse up is equals to what? The function that we just made. So we'll change background. And then the next one, so let's test this thing out. This is when we increase, when we roll over, it increases. When we release the button, I'm clicking down, and when I'm lifting it, it changes to black. It's hard to see, so let me change it to, pick a color. Pink, yellow. Yellow. Or how about, let's get fancy, pick lavender. Whoa, that's lavender. Now the next one, create a function called change text. Function change text. And we want to make it change to 3. And then we want to set it equals to this one. I wonder if inner HTML will work. It works, so let's just, so then we will have to call it now. By specifying the event type, which is on mouse out. And the function we just made was change text. And so when we go in and then go out, the text changes. Cool. And then the last one will be a function called show item. And that will be on item 5. And this is supposed to make an element appear by changing this display style property to block. So if we want to change the style, we have to specify the style property, and then from there we can be more specific on which style to change, and that's display, and we'll set that to block. That worked. When display is set to none, the element does not appear in the HTML document. When it is set to block, the element is displayed as a block element. And now we just have to call that one on the item 4, because that's what happens when we click on the 4th box. And it's when we click on it, so it's on click, right? On mouse down. Not a click, but a mouse down. I wonder if on click will work. The function name is show item. Now so on click and on mouse down is 2 different things. It has to be mouse down. You found me. Hehe. That one was fun. Alright. Let's look through. Let me look through everything again. I think I showed this to you before. These are the different mouse events. The index.html is always short. Nothing too complex in the CSS. Alright, we're almost done. Keyboard events. When popular types of events are keyboard. Other popular types of events are keyboard events. Keyboard events are triggered by user interaction with keyboard keys in the browser. The key down event is fired while a user presses a key down. Same thing for key up is when it's an event fired while a user releases a key. The key press event is fired when a user presses a key down and releases it. This is different from using key down and key up events together because those are two complete events and key press is one complete event. Whoa, this is cool. Keyboard events have unique properties assigned to their event objects, like the key property that stores the values of the key pressed by the user. You can program the event handler function to react to a specific key or react to any interaction with the keyboard. Now it's time to create a game. Program this code to dribble the ball on the platform using any key on a keyboard. When a user presses a key down, it should lift the ball up. When a user releases a key, the ball should drop. Let's first make a function named up that will raise the bottom position of the ball to 250 pixels. The bottom style property stores the vertical position of an element. It should be assigned to a value of 250 pixels as a string, not a number. So we need to know which element we're working with, which is the ball, and then change the bottom style to 250 pixels. Oh, and this has to be inside of a function named up. And then we need to make a function name down that will lower the bottom position to 50 pixels. Create an event handler property that runs the up function when a key down event fires on the document object or anywhere on the DOM as an event target. An event handler property when a key down event fires on the document object. The document represents the entire document object model. Using the document as the event target allows you to fire the event anywhere on the DOM. Okay. On key down is equals to wait a minute. Okay, yeah, on key down. So when it says key down, it's not the down arrow key, it's the when any key is pressed downwards. And we want to set that to up function so that the ball can be lifted up. Looks like that is correct, and let's test it out. Press any key. Nothing, it doesn't happen. Oh, there it goes. Okay, now we want to bring it down. an event handler property that runs the down function when the key up event fires on the document. So the same thing, except on key up. When you code and play and when you run your code and play around with the keyboard events to make the ball bounce on the platform, you can try keys like the spacebar, letter keys, or number keys. It represents the entire document object model using the document as the event target, allows you to fire the event anywhere on the DOM. Alright. Now let's just go through the index HTML. I have no idea what that bottom is. So there's just a div. What is the bottom? Where? What do they mean by bottom? Something with a bottom. I have no idea how they did that. All they did was just change the bottom. They have a bottom here. And they have a bottom here. Transition duration. Oh, they made it look like it was moving by using this. Okay. I guess. Alright, we finally finished. Congrats, you completed the lesson. Now you've learned about JavaScript events, and you can leverage these events on the DOM to create interactivity with event handlers. Oh, there's Tetrix. Let's review what you've learned. You can register events to DOM elements using the add event listener method. The add event listener method takes two arguments, an event type and event handler function. When an event is triggered on the event target, the registered event handler function executes. Event handler function can also be registered as values of on-event properties of their event target. Event object properties like .target, .type, and .stamp are used to provide information about the event. The .add event listener method can be used to add multiple event handler functions to a single event. The remove event listener method stops specific event handlers from listening for specific events firing. Oh, so these are called object properties. Event object properties. These are handler functions. Events have handler functions and they have object properties. Alright. That's it for this lessons. Went a little bit too longer than I wanted, but thanks for running with me. See you on the next stream.